Well, welcome to the 700 Club. Three presidents in one state. Pennsylvania is known as the Keystone State, and it might just hold the key to the Senate. That's why both parties deployed their big guns over the weekend.
With just one day to go before the midterm elections, the race is neck and neck. As Matt Gelka reports, the current president and two former presidents were all on the ground stumping for their candidates.
Just 3 days from now, the people of Pennsylvania are going to elect Dr. Mehmet Oz to the United States Senate.
Oz, one of the former president's key endorsements, is locked in a tight race with Democrat John Fetterman.
But the most important thing I believe in is you. And if we do this all together, we will win big time on Tuesday. Are you all in? Because if you're all in, we win.
In an attempt to reach all factions of the party, Oz appeared with moderate Republican Senator Susan Collins the day after the Trump rally.
Dr. Oz has made very clear that he would have voted to certify the election results in 2020. And that, after all, is what is important.
Meanwhile, Democrats brought in the big guns as well, with Barack Obama trying to push Fetterman across the finish line.
Pittsburgh, I am here to ask you to vote. My last favor of all of you is please send Dr. Oz back to New Jersey. And please send me to Washington, D.C.
President Biden joined the fray in Philadelphia.
There's no quit in John Fetterman. There's no quit in Pennsylvania. There is no quit in America.
Democrats see Pennsylvania as their best chance to flip a seat, with Republican Senator Pat Toomey retiring. Holding the seat with Oz could ultimately lead to control of the chamber. Matt Gelka, CBN News.
Well, turning to the House of Representatives, Republicans believe they'll not only win a majority, but make big gains. They're banking on flipping seats in districts with vulnerable incumbent Democrats. And one of those races is right here in Virginia, where Representative Elaine Luria is facing a tough GOP challenger. Heather Sells reports on the battle in the 2nd District.
Virginia's newly drawn 2nd District is extremely competitive this year, and it could help decide who controls the House.
People are engaged and energized.
On a hot Saturday afternoon, Congresswoman Elaine Luria is thanking her canvassers who've spent hours working in Chesapeake, a part of Luria's new district that runs largely red.
I'm no stranger to tough elections. You know, this is my 3rd time around.
We know we're neck and neck. We feel like we're hopefully ever so slightly ahead.
Luria faces Republican Jen Kiggins, a fellow Navy vet and a state senator. CBN News caught up with her at a veterans Get Out the Vote rally. Her number one message, like many in the GOP right now, the economy.
We knock doors, and we're always going to civic leagues and carpool lines, and even just when I'm out and about in town, and every single person that talks to me, the first thing they always want to talk about are the gas and grocery prices.
Kiggins is also talking about the border, crime, and education. And she's hoping to cast Luria as a committed partisan.
Luria votes with Nancy Pelosi 99% of the time.
Luria has made it a point to tout her bipartisan work, but her number one issue is what many Democrats are leading with.
And if you believe the 2020 election was stolen, definitely not your candidate.
Luria served on the January 6th investigation committee, a move she says may have cost her her seat. But she says now is the time to protect democratic institutions.
We can never allow something like that to happen in the U.S. again. We can't. We're not a country where one resorts to violence to solve political differences.
She's gone after Kiggins on the election issue.
She is clearly chosen to be an election denier.
I can't overstate how important election integrity, is for me. And yes, Joe Biden is the president of the United States.
Recent polling shows the two are deadlocked, which means the next 24 hours could mean everything for them and for both parties vying for control of the House. Heather Sells, CBN News.
Well, CBN chief political analyst David Brody joins us now for more. And David, let's just lead with this narrative. The Democrats are out there campaigning that democracy is in peril. and so you have to vote Democrat if you want to preserve the democracy. Do you think that's resonating in the country today?
I think it's resonating, Gordon, only with certain folks out there in the country, and I think what I'm going to be looking for on Tuesday night are those exit polls. Where does threats to democracy play exactly? You know, the Democrats will say it's right up there at the top. I think what we're going to end up finding out, it's going to be inflation, it's going to be crime. Threats to democracy will be there somewhere, but it'll probably be in that 4 or 5 slot, and that won't be good for Democrats. So I think that's going to be a storyline I'm looking at. But for sure, look, inflation here's the thing. Inflation's a bipartisan issue. I mean, in essence, it is galvanizing independents and Republicans and even some Democrats as it relates to the economy being bad as we know it is. And then on top of inflation, you've got crime. Gordon, and I think that's been the double problem here for the Democrats. It's one thing if the economy is going south. It's quite another if you've got the economy and now you also have to deal with the crime factor. So it's really kind of a double hit for Democrats.
Well, I assume Democrats have access to polling. Why in the world would they bank their entire election strategy on that kind of issue when you already can determine from polls and focus groups that it's not resonating nearly as much as the price of groceries and gasoline?
Well, I think a big part of this is what is the closing argument? I think so the answer to the question, Gordon, is they don't really have a closing argument on the economy. They can't go there. The data isn't there. The results aren't there. And so they've got to look to something else. So we see threats to democracy. They're trying to play up the abortion issue after Roe was overturned. But even that has now started to shrink. And why has it started to shrink? A lot of people say, well, wait a minute. You had the bump for Democrats after Roe. What has happened since then? Well, what's happened since then is Democrats have wanted to codify Roe v. Wade into law. They wanted abortion on demand, abortion coming down the birth canal, and that's all been going on in the Senate. And so what you see now is it's given Republicans an opportunity to say, wait a minute, in many of these debates, to say, wait a minute here, Democrats, you're way too extreme. So in essence, the Democrats have given Republicans some ammunition to use against them on the abortion issue, so that has shrunk back and hasn't been as kind to Democrats.
Well, what are your expectations here? There are lots of predictions of a giant red wave in the House. Do you think that's going to come true? How big of a change do you see?
I think we're looking at somewhere between a wave and a tsunami. And just to kind of give you a sense of those numbers, anywhere from 0 to 20 seats in the House would be a ripple. In other words, under 20 would be kind of a ripple. That 20 to 35, that's the sweet spot. That's the wave that everybody's talking about. And over 35, in essence, would be that red tsunami. And so I think we could get into that 35 territory if things go really well on Tuesday night for Republicans. There'll be certain indicators that I'll be looking for during our election coverage. But I think that's kind of like the overall sense of what's going on here.
Well, let's look historically at that. Clinton, in his first midterm, lost 54 congressional seats. Obama lost 63, and then Trump lost 40. So if you see your tsunami, are we just talking about this is going to be the same game going forward, that in the midterm, the sitting president loses the Congress?
Yeah, and if you look at the approval rating of the president at the time that you just mentioned, Obama and Clinton, it tracks with the losses. So, for example, in 2010, when Barack Obama lost, they lost 63 seats. Barack Obama's approval rating was at 45%. Joe Biden's approval rating now is at 44%. And so that's why there's a concern in Democrat circles that the approval rating of a president matters. It mattered with Obama in 2010, even when Trump, and they lost in 2018 by a certain amount of seats. Donald Trump's approval rating was down at about 45, 46%. So there seems to be a direct correlation between a president's approval rating and the losses that a party takes in the midterms. And of course, we know historically, Gordon, and you know this, that the party that is in charge of the White House historically loses quite a few seats in the midterm elections in their first one around. The only time it hasn't happened was after 9/11 and George W. Bush.
All right, well, let's talk about the Senate, because if that flips, it looks like the Congress will. But if the Senate flips, that's a game changer. So take us through some of the key races.
Well, let's do it. And look, there's a chance, and listen, I don't want to be in the prediction business, but there is a chance if things go, if it's a tsunami sort of night, the Republicans could pick up a total of 55 seats in the Senate. Let's show you how they'll do it. Let's go to Georgia. Georgia, obviously, now this could go to a runoff potentially, but Georgia, there's Herschel Walker and Raphael Warnock, in essence, a dead heat. But that is a Democrat-held seat. If Republicans pick that up, that's 51. We go to Nevada, where Catherine Cortez Masto is looking like she's going to lose that race to Adam Waxalt. We will see, but she's not doing well with the Hispanics out there in Nevada. That would be 52. And then we go over to Arizona, and Blake Masters has made a late charge against Mark Kelly, the Democrat there. That's 53. And then we're into wild card territory out in Washington State. Patty Murray may actually lose. She's been in the Senate, my goodness, I don't know, since I was like 14 years old. I don't know. I can't do the math, but it's been 30-plus years. She could lose to Tiffany Smiley, a great candidate that Republicans have put out there. That could be 54. That's not a seat Democrats were expecting to lose. And then New Hampshire, Maggie Hassan could lose that seat. Don Bolduc winning there potentially as a Republican. That could make it 55 seats. Now, of course, that means the Republicans have to keep Pennsylvania, Ohio, Wisconsin, and did I say Wisconsin, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and there's a fourth one. North Carolina. Those are the four that Republicans would have to keep, but all four of those look safe, though Pennsylvania clearly is the one that Republicans could lose with Dr. Oz. We'll see.
Well, in politics, it is all about the math, and it's about increasingly shrinking independent voters and how to attract enough of them in order to get your base plus that independent vote to actually win an election. So the Latino vote seems to be shifting right now and shifting to the GOP. What's the reason behind that?
You're absolutely right. And it's been doing it, actually. That's been going on for many years. There's a lot of different reasons behind it. It kind of has a DNA of pro-family, overall conservative values. That's what Hispanics overall value. But obviously, inflation is driving this. Crime is driving this. But let's go specifically and talk about midterm election night. What I'm going to be looking for is down in South Texas. There are 3 districts down there in that Rio Grande Valley area. Texas, not to geek out, but Texas 28. You can see it at the bottom of the screen down there in Texas, that the yellow mustard, if you will. Down there, Texas 28, Texas 15, and Texas 34. All held by Democrats, all being challenged by Latina women down there, Republican Latina women. They could all win down there. They could at least get 2 of the 3. That would be a big deal. And why exactly? Why in South Texas? Well, there's a couple of reasons. One, immigration. The Hispanic community down there is very concerned about illegal immigration, number one. Also, when Joe Biden got rid of the Keystone Pipeline, it took a lot of oil and gas jobs away from many Hispanics that were going to be working on the Keystone Pipeline. That has not gone well. And then, of course, you have inflation, crime, et cetera. You put it all together, and I got to tell you, one stat to look at that I'm going to be looking at, the floor for Republicans regarding Hispanics is 37%. In other words, if they can get 37% of Hispanics on election night nationally, that would be good. But what they're really looking to do is 40%. If they can get 40% of Hispanics nationally, that's the ceiling. That's the number to look for. We'll be watching on Tuesday night.
Got to ask this. If the House changes, and it looks like it will, what's your prediction of what will the new majority in the House do?
Well, that's a great question. And honestly, this is going to be a problem for Republicans. They've promised a lot. I think what we're going to see is a lot of oversight, whether it be on Anthony Fauci, on whether it be on Hunter Biden, and we can go on down the list of their folks that they're targeting, if you will. But I think oversight's going to be a big part of it. The problem here for Republicans is, as much as they want to take the House, if they don't get the Senate with it, it's going to be a problem. And, oh, by the way, the last time I checked, there's a Democrat in the White House. So still, there's going to be problems passing and ushering through legislation. But I can tell you, I think oversight will be a big part of their agenda.
All right. Well, more investigative committees. I can't wait.
Right.
That is just, that's a thrilling prediction. Well, David, thanks for your insights, and I look forward to the coverage tomorrow night. CBN News will have live team coverage on election night. You can watch it on the CBN News Channel. That's tomorrow from 8 to midnight Eastern Time. Be sure to download the CBN News app or go to the CBN Family app to watch live. And most importantly, tomorrow, let your voice be heard. We need lots of participation across all groups. That's where you get the best of democracy, where everyone participates and says, I want my voice to be heard in how our nation is governed. And let me underline governed. Can we please, once the election's over, can we stop the campaigning and get down to the business of leading the world?